This lesson is about applying properties of logarithms. Now, we're going to use these later on when we're solving equations, so it's important that you know how to manipulate the properties of logarithms and how to use them. So your essential question is, how are properties of logarithms like properties of exponents? So if you know the properties of exponents pretty well, you're probably going to do really well with this section. So first, you might recall the three main things that I told you about properties of exponents, and they were multiply and add, divide and subtract, raise and multiply. Now, if you haven't memorized these yet, you might want to, because these also apply to the properties of logarithms. They're just reversed. So the first thing was what we did with the coefficients of the numbers. We either multiplied them, divided them, or raised them to a power. And the second part was what we did with the exponents. So this is going to be very similar to that, just reversed. So the product property is when we have log with base b and we have two numbers that are multiplied together. So what you can do with that is you can separate those into two separate logarithms with the same base by addition. So it's multiply and add. Okay, now the quotient property is when you have two numbers that are divided, and we're going to separate those into two separate logarithms of the same base with subtraction. So it's divide and subtract. And then the third one is the power property, and that's when we have a number raised to a power. And so what we do is we take that power that was originally right here and we use it to multiply into the front. So it's raise and multiply. So multiply and add, divide and subtract, raise and multiply. So this would be like, for example, if I had log base 3 of, let's say we did 6 times 4. Okay, and normally that would be already worked out, so it would be 24. But let's say we had it like that. That would be the same as log base 3 of 6 plus log base 3 of 4. So you're just separating the two numbers by addition. Okay, same thing here. If I had log base 3 of 2/3, okay, that would be the same as log base 3 of 2 minus log base 3 of 3. So you could separate them by subtraction. Then let's say I had like log base 7 of x squared. Okay, another way to write that would be to take this 2 that is the exponent and multiply it in the front. So that would be like 2 log base 7 of x. So we separate those apart like that. So those are just some examples. Okay, so let's try a few different examples. Let's say that we'd figured out what these logarithms were. And so they're telling you that log base 4 of 3 is approximately 0.792, and log base 4 of 7 is approximately 1.404. Okay, and we're going to use those to substitute values in later to evaluate a specific logarithm. So let's say we have log base 4 of 3/7. So first what we want to do is we want to use these two logarithms that we were given. So we're going to use 3 and 7, and we're going to separate them using the properties of logarithms. So we're either going to use the product property, the quotient property, or the power property. So this one you can see is dividing. So if you remember our three rules, this one would be divide and subtract. So this one is going to equal log base 4 of 3 minus log base 4 of 7. So we're just separating them. The two numbers that were divided, we're now giving separate logarithms, and we're subtracting. Now I'm going to use substitution to plug in the values of these logarithms and find the actual answer. Okay, so we're going to use the fact that log base 4 of 3 is equal to 0.792, and we're going to use log base 4 of 7 is equal to 1.404. So if we just subtract those two things, 0.792 minus 1.404 is equal to negative 0.612. And so that is the answer. Okay, let's try another example. So we have log base 4 of 21. Now, we're just going to assume that 21 is made using the two numbers we've been given, 3 and 7. So how can I use 3 and 7 to make 21? Well, I can multiply them together. So this is kind of like having log base 4 of 3 times 7, or 7 times 3. Okay, so I need to rewrite this using the properties of logarithms. So this one would be multiply and add. So I'm going to rewrite it as log base 4 of 3 plus log base 4 of 7. So we change the multiplication to separate logarithms with addition. And now I just plug in the same values that I used in the last one. I know that log base 4 of 3 is equal to 0.792. And I know that log base 4 of 7 was equal to 1.404. So I'm going to add those two values together. So 0.792 plus 1.404 is equal to 2.196. So that is my answer. Okay. The last example, log base 4 of 49. So we're going to try to make 49 using 3 and 7, or you can also just use 3, or you could also just use 7. You don't have to use both the numbers, you just need to use one or both of the numbers. So how can I make 49 out of either 7 or 3 or both? Well, 49 is like 7 squared, or you could do 7 times 7. It doesn't matter which one you do because you'll come out with the same answer, so I'll show you both ways. So you could do it log base 4 of 7 squared, or you could do log base 4 of 7 times log base 4, oops, sorry, not times. Whoa, I didn't want to do that. Or you could do log base 4 of 7 times 7. So either way. Either one is fine. I'm going to use this property because we haven't done power property yet, so I'm just going to use that to show you. So if I break this down using the properties of logarithm, this one was raise and multiply. So remember, I take that 2 and I put it down in the front. So I'm taking 2 log base 4 of 7. Okay, so if I take 2 times log base 4 of 7, which was equal to 1.404 that they gave me at the top. Remember, these are the values that I was given in the problem up here. Okay, then I get 2 times 1.404, which is equal to, whoops, hold on, 2.808. So that would be my answer. So if you did it using this way, it's 1.404 plus 1.404, which comes out to be the same answer. So it doesn't really matter which one you do. So either way would be fine. Alright, now let's look at how to expand a logarithm expression. Okay, so let's say that I have log base 6 of 5x cubed divided by y. Well, this has all the properties involved. We have multiplication, we have division, and we have powers. So you're going to separate everything one thing at a time. So what I like to do first is I like to separate the top from the bottom first, which is the division. So dividing is divide and subtract. So we're going to take log base 6 of 5x cubed minus log base 6 of y. So now we've separated our division. So now if we look at this one, we can separate the 5 from the x cubed because those are multiplied together. And do you remember how we separate multiplication? It's multiply and add. So we're going to separate those by addition. So it's going to be log base 6 of 5 plus log base 6 of x cubed, and then we still have minus log base 6 of y. Okay, so now is there anything else that we can separate? If you look at it, you can separate the x cubed because that's the power property. So we can do raise and multiply. So remember, this 3 can come down in front. So then we have log base 6 of 5 plus 3 log base 6 of x minus log base 6 of y. So this would be our final answer. Now you might have arrived there faster, but I like to do things one step at a time. That way I make sure I don't skip any steps and I don't make any mistakes. So like I said, I would always separate the division first, then the multiplication, then the powers. That's the order I would go in if you have multiple properties to use. So that's how we expand an expression. Let's try one more example. And feel free to pause the video at any time if you want to, and try these before I show you the answers. So the last example is expand log 3x to the 4th power. Now remember, when we just have log and there's no base, do you remember what the base is? It's a 10. Now in this case, it doesn't really matter because you can just write log and everybody will know that that's log base 10. But I just wanted to check and see if you remembered that. So we need to separate the 3 from the x to the 4th. So those two are multiplied together. So this would be multiply and add. So we're going to have log 3 plus log x to the 4th. Now remember, you can write the 10 down here if you want, but you don't have to. Okay? Anything else that you see that we could separate? The x to the 4th. So we're going to use the power property, which is raise and multiply. So remember, you're going to take this 4 and you're going to bring it down front. So it's going to turn into 4 log x. And so this would be the answer. So this one was actually a little bit simpler than the last problem. So make sure that you go back and answer the essential question and write your summary.